Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Today, I'm here to speak on our achievements and what we have done under the Ministry of Steel Development based on the mandate by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. I will summarize, for want of time, my presentation into three parts. One, I will talk about the mandate of Mr. President. Two, I will talk about what we have achieved. And three, I would also briefly talk about what is left for us to do ahead. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu gave a mandate to the Ministry of Steel Development following the creation of the ministry in August 2023. And the mandates are in two major parts. One is the revival of the Ajaokuta Steel Complex and the National Iron Ore Mining Company, which I will summarize as NIOMCO. And then secondly is the revival of the entire steel industry. This is very, very critical to the renewed hope agenda of Mr. President, whose desire is to grow the economy of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to over $1 trillion by the end of the first term of this administration, thereby making us a G20 economy. Getting to $1 trillion is a big task, but very, very much achievable, as Mr. President has said. And the steel sector will play an important role in ensuring that this administration achieves that. So that is the mandate for the Ministry of Steel Development. What have we done so far in terms of our achievements for the revival of the Ajaokuta Steel Complex as well as NIOMCO? Those government assets were built in 1979, so this makes it 45 years since the creation and the construction of those major national government assets. And now, for most of those 45 years, those assets have been comatose. By the end of 1983, at the end of the Shehu Shagari administration, which originally built the plants and the complexes in 1979, the plant was around 98% complete. But since then, nothing has been done pretty much by the federal government over those years, more than 40 years. They've tried to do, successive administrations have tried to do so many things which has not achieved the desired results. But Mr. President is not deterred and has asked us that while we are trying to resolve the broader issue of Ajaokuta, we should also address the low-hanging fruits and resolve the things that can be done in the immediate term. So we have started to put some very, very concrete and imminent measures in place to achieve that. The first thing that we have done to achieve that is we have obtained presidential approval from Mr. President himself to raise private capital to restart the light section mill of the Ajaokuta steel plant. We are at the final stages of raising about 35 or over 35 billion naira from a local financial institution, which is around $25 million, to be able to restart the light section mill of the complex so that we can produce iron rods. That light section mill has a capacity to produce up to 400,000 metric tons of iron rods per annum. Now, I have been working very, very closely with the Minister of Works, Senator Umahi, so that we can provide iron rods to the ministry as part of the concrete road revolution of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. There are so many roads that are being constructed across the country, about 30,000 kilometers of roads across the 6 geopolitical zones. So part of what we are doing is that we understand that the Ministry of Works needs about 7 million metric tons of iron rods over that 4-year period to construct these 30,000 kilometers of roads. Ajaokuta can produce 400,000 tons, which is a drop in the ocean of what is required. But because it's an important asset, the president is keen on us getting Ajaokuta to work and being able to produce some of these iron rods that is required by the federal government. So this 35 billion naira that we are raising will help us resuscitate the light steel mill and help us to produce up to 50,000 metric tons of iron rods. Like I said, we're in the final stages of raising the financing. The local financial institution has given us a final offer, which I have done a cover letter and forwarded the relevant documents to the Minister of Finance to be able to take the financing on behalf of the federal government using promissory notes that will be discounted and provided for Ajaokuta to be able to get back on track in terms of the iron rod production. So that's the first thing. The second thing that we've done in that regard is we have had advanced discussions with the Ministry of Defense. So I have engaged on several occasions with the Minister of State for Defense, Governor Metawale, who is in charge of DICON. I've also engaged with Alhaji Badaru, the Minister of Defense, to work on using one of the engineering workshops or engineering plants in Ajaokuta to be able to produce military hardwares for usage by the Nigerian military to enhance our security situation. So what is required is we have a methodological development center that has the ability to provide us with the lead and zinc that is required to be able to provide and produce some of these military hardwares, whether it's vests or helmets or bullets or components for tanks, so on and so forth. The MOU has been prepared. The MOU is on my desk currently. I'm reviewing it. Part of what we're trying to tidy up in terms of dotting the I's and crossing the T's is to ensure that we're able to secure the required financing. We want to pursue a private sector route to raise the financing to be able to revive that plant. But we also want some push and some contributions by the federal government as well. So that's the second thing that we're doing regarding the first mandate. The third thing that we're doing regarding getting Ajaokuta and NIOMCO back on track is we have started having discussions regarding reviving the power plant. Ajaokuta has a 110 megawatt power plant that can produce power that can supply power not just to Ajaokuta Steel Complex, but also to the national grid to improve power supply. Because of the lack of funding and lack of resources that are available, part of what we are doing is we're trying to think outside the box and be innovative. So we're engaging in a PPP partnership where the asset will be used as the collateral, so to say, and the private sector investor can come in and give us financing and provide financing and expertise to be able to get the power plant back on track. We're talking to 3 potential suitors right now, including Transcorp Power, including Niger Delta Power Holding Company, and the third is Reticulated Global Engineering. Those are the companies that we're talking to ensure that the power plant is back on track. The fourth thing regarding Ajaokuta and NIOMCO is, which is extremely important, in fact it should be number 1, which is we have initiated discussions with the OEM, the original equipment manufacturers, the original builders of the steel plant, to come back and complete the job, right? To revive Ajaokuta, we need about $2 billion based on estimates from experts. And the Russian builders that came originally to build the plant have shown willingness and desire to help us to complete reserve bidders and other parties that have also shown interest, including the Chinese, including some of the Arab companies, the Indian companies, and even Nigerian companies. The consortium that the Russian company is leading also includes Nigerian companies as well, or a Nigerian entity. So we're factoring in local capacity in the entire conversation. So that's a very, very important component which we're trying to resolve. The fifth thing that we're doing regarding the first mandate from Mr. President is we are also putting measures in place and looking at creating an industrial park in Ajaokuta territory. There's a steel territory that occupies about 24,000 hectares of land, which is almost as big as the size of Abuja. Now, of that 24,000 hectares of land that is available, 800 hectares, the steel plant is built on 800 hectares. So there's over 23,000 hectares of land that is available. The idea is to create an industrial park where all steel operators, not just in Nigeria but in West Africa, ultimately will coalesce and produce, a steel component. So that will be the industrial hub of Nigeria, hopefully. So that's the desire in terms of addressing the first component of what Mr. President has desired for us to do in the steel industry. Now, the last component that I'll talk about is what is left for us to do, which is very much and closely related to Mr. President's second mandate to us, which is the revival of the entire steel industry. How do we achieve this? It's a very, very critical component of the steel jigsaw. What we're doing to revive the steel industry is, number one, we have drafted an internal document that gives us a 10-year roadmap for the steel industry. We have also drafted an internal document that has produced a 3-year roadmap for the revival of Ajaokuta Steel as well as Nyomco. So we have those two documents that have been produced by internal experts. However, we need to take it a step further. We need to consult and work with all the industry stakeholders. We have to be able to do testings. We have to be able to bring in consultants. We have to be able to bring in consultants to look at, similar steel markets that are similar to what we are doing in Nigeria or what exists in Nigeria. So we have to be able to look at, the Indian market, the Egyptian market. We have to look at, even some European markets, including Russia and maybe the US, to be able to decide and determine how best for us to revive the steel industry. That will require some funding. We need somewhere between $2 to $5 million or up to $5 million to be able to draft the roadmap and put all the legworks in place. We're currently in the process of raising financing. So as you can see, we have a lot of initiatives, but financing is somewhat of a challenge. But we're not complaining. We're working hard and we're thinking outside the box to put those measures in place. The second thing is we have engaged with a Chinese steel producer, Luan Steel, as well as Mr. President has engaged an Indian steel company, Jindal Steel, at the sidelines of the G20 meeting last year, September 2023, where they committed to bringing in about up to $5 billion to set up a 5 million metric tons of steel plant. Luan Steel, where we were in China on the 1st of January this year, where I was in China together with the Minister of Defense, Alhaji Badaru, has also shown interest in committing about $3 billion to set up a 3 million metric ton steel plant in Nigeria. Part of what we are looking to do is we need to identify the best place to situate the raw materials, the best place that captures a deep sea port, the best place that, there's gas supply to be able to bring in all the necessary parameters. So if you look at what we're doing with Jindal Steel, Luan Steel, as well as the money that we're bringing in Ajaokuta, we have a potential pipeline and commitment of up to $10 billion that we are looking to bring into the steel industry. The final thing that I would say is we are looking to put in some policies and enact some bills to be able to guide the industry. One of the bills that we've put in place and that we're looking to enact is the Metallurgical Industry Bill. That has scaled the second reading. We're engaging with the National Assembly. Some amendments are being proposed which will be sent to the National Assembly very soon. The National Steel Council Act will be amended, as well as the Metallurgical Training Industry Bill. Once we put those acts and bills in place, that will provide the guidance for the steel industry. And the last thing that I'll mention is we have also enhanced regulation of scrap metals in Nigeria. And we have engaged the Scrap Metals Dealers Association of Nigeria so that we can provide some regulatory oversight and overview on the scrap metals industry in Nigeria. Thank you. Thank you very much. I believe I had about 3 or 4 questions, and I would attempt to answer those questions. The first gentleman raised the question around Ajaokuta Steel being 98% complete. So I just wanted to provide quick perspective on that. Ajaokuta Steel Complex was 98% completed in 1994, which was about 30 years ago. Now, since then, there's been a lot of false starts in terms of trying to get the plant working, trying to get the plant concession to a technical partner that has the expertise. That hasn't panned out according to plan because some of the terms of the agreements in which it was done was not in the best interest of Nigeria. And therefore, the plant is unlikely to be 98% complete as at today, if nothing has been done over the last 30 years. Part of what we have to do is to, once we're done engaging these counterparties with all the relevant and technical expertise, they will do a technical audit that would advise us what stage of completion the plant is in and what it will take to finish up the job. In terms of why do we continue to leverage on foreign assistance, again, just to provide some perspective and some color around what is going on in the steel industry, there's about $4 billion worth of steel that is being imported into Nigeria on an annual basis. What that means is that if our local steel producers are able to meet the demand or produce the required standards and qualities, then that amount would have been significantly lower. There are a lot of local indigenous players that are doing fantastically well, but we have a long way to go, broadly speaking, in the steel industry. We still need a lot of technical expertise. Some of the equipments for the government-owned steel plants are in foreign languages. Interpretation is always going to be a challenge, and converting that to English requires some level of expertise. And why are we not looking at Nigerian companies? Like I mentioned during my presentation, based on what technical experts have adduced and what they have seen and recommended, we need a minimum of $2 billion to revive Ajaokuta. I would say that the local players don't have that kind of money. It's a significant amount of money. We're talking 3 trillion naira. It's a huge amount of money. Even if you try to raise it from local banks or local financial institutions, you struggle significantly. Hence why we're partnering with foreign companies. However, the foreign companies that we're partnering with would also have some Nigeria component in them. So the guys that we're talking to, are forming a consortium with, Nigerian companies, or there's a Nigerian component in there. And then lastly, the that is left for completion, how long would it take to be completed? I think Princess asked that, and I think I had answered it earlier. It was 98% complete in 1994. Today is significantly lower. A lot of work is required to get it up and running. It's a challenging industry, and the task at hand is significant and is difficult. But is it doable? The answer is yes. Has the president showed commitment? The answer is yes. And no other commitment can be bigger than the creation of the Ministry of Steel Development, to show intent and to show political will. Thank you very much.